Good morning, all the viewers and the panel of webinar team. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. A. Venugopal Reddy, Principal of Telangana Model School, Inamanka in Karimnagar district. Dr. A. Venugopal Reddy, born on 8 August 1974, holds a master's degree in microbiology from Bhopal University and a PhD from Kakatiya University. He has a vast teaching experience of 23 years in various education institutions. He attended 24 national seminars, conferences, workshops, which include 2 National Science Congress too. He has been a member of various committees at district and state level. He's a good orator and fond of writing. His columns on education and other matters have been published in various vernacular periodicals and newspapers. He had received the Best Teacher Award on Telangana State Formation Day on 2nd June 2017. Undoubtedly, he is an asset to Telangana model schools in the state. It is my honor to privilege to introduce him to the viewers. I look forward to all the viewers to make optimum utilization of his expertise and knowledge. So it's certainly the session is going to be very useful for all the viewers. I thank the panel team for giving me an opportunity to introduce Dr. Venugopal Reddy. So over to Dr. Venugopal Reddy for continuing his session.
Thank you, dear Ram Prasad Garu. Good morning. I'm Dr. Venugopal Reddy, Principal, Telangana State Model School, Vinamanka. Today, I'm going to give an overview about the plant physiology. So, first of all, what is plant physiology? Plant physiology is a subdiscipline of botany. Actually, botany is a subdiscipline of biology that deals about the plants. So, plant physiology is a subdiscipline of botany concerned with the functioning or physiology of plants. So functioning of plants means plants perform different types of functions. In plant physiology, we are going to study about the function, how these functions are performed. So it is an allied subject. That means it is interactive with other subjects such as plant morphology. Plant morphology deals about the structure of the plants, and the plant ecology. Plant ecology means all the living organisms, plants also live in the environment. When they live in the environment, they interact with the environment with the both biotic and abiotic factors. So plant ecology also play an important role in the plant physiology. Phytochemistry. Phytochemistry means biochemistry of plants. Inside the plant, several biochemical reactions are taking place. Several. So all these biochemical reaction has to be studied to understand the functioning of the plants, that we can consider as phytochemistry. So cell biology also included, genetics, biophysics, and molecular biology. So if you take any branch of biology or any branch of the botany, no branch is independent, they are interdependent. So if you want to study about the plant physiology, you have to have a brief idea or overall idea about all the subjects, especially phytochemistry, cellular interactions, molecular and cell biology, plant morphology, etc. When you are having a idea about that, all these things only, we can understand the plant physiology. So what is the definition of the plant physiology? Actually, this physiology, the term is taken from the Greek language. So physics means nature. So how the plant behaves, not only plant, animal physiology is also there, human physiology is also there. How one organism behaves, that is called physics. So logos means word, discourse on the nature of the plants, discourse on the nature of the plants. That means how they functions. So we defined it as science of how plants develop, grow, and respond to their environment at the cellular and biochemical level. So each plant germinates initially. When it germinates, it starts developing, it grows in size. When it grows in size, it faces a lot of environmental factors, both biotic and abiotic factors. The plant has to respond, just like we are responding. Now we are facing a pandemic. When we are facing a pandemic, now we are responding in a different manner than usually we respond. So such type of response is also exhibited by the plants also at the cellular level and biochemical level. So how the plants develop, grow, and respond to the environmental conditions is called plant physiology. We will study this at the cellular and biochemical level. So what does this physiology includes? So we come across different terms, genetics, molecular biology, they are different things. In physiology, what we are going to follow up? Structure and anatomy in relation to the plant function. Actually, that comes under the morphology and anatomy. By studying in the first year, we studied about the morphology and anatomy. So after studying the morphology and anatomy, now we are relating it to how the plants function. So for example, we studied the TS of the root, TS of the stem. So how it is related? We studied the differences between the monocots and the dicots. Now all these differences, how they play an important role in the plant function, that we will study in the structure and anatomy. Source of energy for plant growth and development. All plants has to grow. Every plant, whatever may be its size, it has to grow in size and develop, and it has to form different types of structures. For performing all these functions, it needs certain energy. Now we are going to discuss how this energy is obtained by the plants. And we will also discuss about the water and nutrient uptake and movement. For example, we know 70% of any organism body is made up of water, and each plant requires different types of nutrients. How these nutrients are moving from the soil to the top of the plant body, that we will study under the water and nutrient uptake. Responses to the environment. Every organism has to respond to the environment. In just like now we have undergone certain stress. At this point of stress, we searched for different options, and ultimately we found one option, and now I am able to interact with you. In the same way, when a plant is living in the environment, it will undergo different types of stress, both abiotic and biotic stress. So it has to come out of that stress. For that, it will show different types of responses. They are called stress responses. So in this plant physiology, we are going to discuss about the transport in plants, mineral nutrition, enzymes, photosynthesis in higher plants, respiration in plants, plant growth and development. These are the topics included in the intermediate second year. So transport in plants. Transport in plants is very important, because there should be two types of transport. For example, it has to absorb the water and nutrients from the soil and should transport to the topmost part of the plant. In the same way, the leaves, which performs photosynthesis, they synthesizes various types of carbohydrates, especially glucose. That glucose has to reach the root. So if you look at a small plant here, it is having three important parts of the plant. One is a root, the second one is stem, the third one are leaves. The roots absorbs the water and mineral nutrients, and they have to transport it to the topmost part of the plant. In the same way, the leaves synthesizes the food material, and the synthesized food materials has to reach the last part of the root also. That how it takes place, that we will discuss here. In the transport of the plants, in plants, we will discuss about the means of transport. There are different means of transport are there. For example, diffusion is there, facilitated diffusion is there, active transport is there. We will discuss about them, and we will also discuss about the plant water relations. Long distance transport of water. Long distance transport of water means inside the plant itself, the water has to be transported very long distance. For example, if you look at the coniferous forest, they contain some trees which are very big in size, very taller in size. The plant has to supply water to every leaf and every part of the plant body. And we will also discuss about the transpiration. Transpiration is generally defined as some necessary evil. Necessary evil means actually plant is spending a lot of energy to absorb the water, but after absorbing the water by spending a lot of energy, it will lose some of the water by means of transpiration. Not some of the water, most of the water. Then why plant is letting the water go away by means of transpiration, that we will discuss. And we will also discuss about the uptake and the transport of mineral nutrients. As we are saying, plant requires various types of nutrients for its survival. So how the plant is uptaking these nutrients and transporting the mineral nutrients. And the last one is a phloem transport. Phloem transport means, as I said earlier, by means of photosynthesis, the plant performs certain activities and synthesize the food material in the leaves. The food material that is synthesized in the leaves has to be transferred to the entire body parts. So here we are giving certain pictures. Some plants are very smaller in size, some plants are bushes, some are very bigger in size. And if this is a coniferous forest, in the coniferous forest, the trees are very taller in nature. Whatever may be the size of the plant has to absorb the water and mineral nutrients from the soil. From the soil, it has to transport the water and mineral nutrients to the topmost part of the plant. And the opposite also should happen, that is regarding the transport of food material. The food material is synthesized in the leaves, and it should reach every part of the it is synthesized in the leaves, and it should reach the every part of the root. So byway transport, water and mineral transport in the upward direction, and food transport in the downward direction. As we all know, plants does not contain any motors. For example, if you are looking at the Kaleshwaram project, there we are using Bahubali motors. That means very high capacity motors. At our home also, for pumping water from down to the topmost water tank, we need at least 1.5 or 2 HP motors. But without using any motors, plant is able to supply water from the root to the topmost part of the plants. So how it is taking place, we will discuss in the transport of the transport in plants. So in this topic, in this lesson, we will cover diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport, water potential, osmosis, plasmolysis, imbibition, transpiration, root pressure, stomata, and phloem transport. All these topics not only are very useful at the intermediate level, as we progress in our career. For example, if you join in agricultural studies, these topics will play a very important role. So we have to pay crucial attention to these topics. So here you can see the two different types of transport systems that are taking place in the plant body. Here we are given a small plant diagram. In this plant diagram, certain arrow marks are shown with the red arrows and certain arrow marks are shown with the green arrow marks. The red arrow marks indicate the movement of the water and mineral nutrients upwards. For example, the root is absorbing the water and mineral ions. The root is absorbing the the root is absorbing the so here you can see a diagram where the roots are absorbing the water and mineral ions and they are transporting to the upward regions. In the same way, the leaves are synthesizing the food material. After synthesizing the food material, they are transporting the sugar molecules to the bottommost parts of the plant body. That is what we call roots. So it is a two-way transportation. That means the transportation takes place in both the direction. So certain amount of gases such as carbon dioxide also enters into the plant body. Sunlight is also required. So all types of transportation, that means solid material transportation, which is in the form of food, or liquid material transportation is taking place, and gases exchange is also taking place. All these materials, both solids, liquids, and gases, has to be transported from one body region of the plant to the another body region of the plant. That is, we discuss under the heading transport in the plant system. So here we have shown it much more clearly. So for example, if you look at the sequences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sequences are there. In the first activity, the roots absorb the water and dissolved nutrients from the soil. After absorption, the water and minerals slowly moves upwards through the xylem vessels. Actually, in the plants, there are two types of vessels are there. One is called xylem vessel and another one is called phloem vessel. Xylem vessel is responsible for the movement of water and mineral ions. Phloem vessels are responsible for the movement of the food material. So how the water is moving upward? This water is moving upwards because of the transpirational pull. That is why we call transpiration as a necessary evil. Without a transpiration pull, the water cannot move. At the same time, there will be certain amount of root pressure is also working. By means of transpirational pull, the water moves upwards and reaches the topmost part of the plant body. The topmost leaf also can exert a certain amount of transpiration pull. By means of the transpirational pull, it can reach the last part of the plant body. At the same time, the leaves contain certain openings called stomata. Through these stomata, the carbon dioxide enters into the plant body and oxygen leaves from the plant body, which is an important process during the photosynthesis. So here you can see in the fifth step, by availing the light energy, the leaves will synthesize sugar molecules. These sugar molecules has to be transported to the entire plant body. That sugar transportation, sugar means glucose molecules, C6H12O6. So they gets transported through the phloem to the every part of the plant body. Certain amount of soil atmospheric gases also there. The soil atmospheric gases gets exchanged through the roots. So all types of material in the plant body gets transported from one body part to the another body part. They exchanges various types of material with the environment. This we all discuss under the transportation in plants. The second important topic is plant nutrition. As we said in the introduction, plants has to grow in size, plants has to develop, plants has to reproduce. For all these processes, plants needs a certain amount of nutrients. These nutrients are classified into two types, macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients and micronutrients. In this topic, we are going to discuss what are the essential nutrients or elements. There are more than 100 elements are there, but plants does not require all these 100 elements. It requires only certain elements, 17 elements. So what are these essential elements and how plants absorbs these essential elements, and after absorption, how these elements move from one body part to the another body part, and where from these elements are absorbed. These elements are absorbed from the soil. Then how the soil is getting replenished. There are different types of cycles are taking place in the environment: nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, sulfur cycle, so carbon cycle, hydrogen cycle. So different types of cycles are taking place in the environment. How these cycles are responsible for the replenishment of the soil, which is an important reservoir for the essential elements. We will also discuss about the metabolism of nitrogen. So as I said earlier, there are two types of nutrients are there: macronutrients and micronutrients. We may call them as macro elements and micro elements also, but basically we call them as macronutrients and micronutrients. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, magnesium. These are called macronutrients. What are macronutrients? That are required in large quantity are called as macronutrients. And we are having micronutrients: iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, chloride, and nickel are called as micronutrients. So these are required in very less quantity. That is why they are called micronutrients. But we must remember that macronutrients and micronutrients, both of them are required for plant growth and developmental activities. If any one of them, whether it is a macronutrient or micronutrient, if any one of them is absent, the deficiencies will be clearly visible and it affects the productivity of the plant. So we need both macronutrients and micronutrients for the plant survival and growth. So in this lesson, we are having nitrogen metabolism. Now in the nitrogen metabolism, we will discuss about the nitrogen cycle, and we also discuss about the nitrogen fixation process. There are two types of nitrogen fixation processes are there: a symbiotic nitrogen fixation and a symbiotic nitrogen fixation. We will discuss about both of them. So the next topic is enzymes. Enzymes are commonly called as biocatalyst. We all know what are catalysts. Catalysts are generally used in the chemistry. So what is a catalyst? That enhances the rate of reaction or accelerates the rate of reaction without participating in the reaction are called as catalyst. But enzymes are catalyst inside our body, not only in the plant body. In the animal body also, several reactions are taking place. These reactions cannot happen at a normal temperature. They need either high temperatures or some other conditions. but plants are having a normal temperature, room temperature or environmental temperature. At this temperature, chemical reactions are not possible. So these chemical reactions are facilitated by the enzymes. That is why enzymes are called biocatalysts. So what type of chemical reactions are performed by the enzymes? Enzymatic conversions, how do they take place? And there are different factors that affect the functioning of the enzymes. We will discuss about the factors affecting the enzymatic activity, and we will also discuss about the classification and nomenclature of enzymes. There are 6 different types of enzymes are there which performs different functions. So we'll discuss about them. And cofactors, all enzymes needs certain associates to make them function. That associates are called as cofactors. We'll discuss about the cofactors. So this is the basic mode of action of the enzymes. Each enzyme will have an active site. Active site is the site where the substrate will bind. What is a substrate? Substrate is the substance that participate in the reaction. So the substrate binds to the active site. When the substrate binds to the active site, certain processes takes place. By means of these processes, the substrate gets converted into the product. We can see here. So conversion of substrate to the products without participation of itself is an enzymatic reaction. That's why enzymes are called biocatalysts. Enzymes are basically classified into 6 types. Oxidoreductases, they are also called dehydrogenases. They perform oxidation reduction reactions. Transferases, which are responsible for the transfer of functional group from one molecule to the another molecule. Hydrolases, that performs hydrolytic reactions. Lyases, that are responsible for the breakdown of the bonds. Isomerases, that converts molecules from one isomeric form to the another isomeric form. Ligases, that binds together. The 2 molecules are bound together by the ligase molecules. And enzymes are chemical molecules. Enzymes are basically proteins. As they are proteins, they are also under the influence of certain environmental factors. The 3 important factors that influences the enzymatic activity are temperature, pH, substrate, concentration. So basing on them, the enzymes will function. The next topic is photosynthesis in higher plants. We all know what is photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means preparation. How the plants prepare their food material by using the light energy is called photosynthesis. Actually, all the green plants, not only higher plants, even bacteria and algae also performs. Cyanobacteria is there, blue-green algae is there. All these are, they also performs photosynthesis. But we are going to study about the photosynthesis in higher plants. So what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is an enzyme regulated anabolic process. So anabolic process means actually in the plants 2 types of reactions takes place. Not only in the plants, in all the living organisms 2 types of reactions takes place. One is called anabolic reaction, and another one is called catabolic reaction. What is anabolic reaction? It is a constructive process. That means from the simple compounds, complex compounds will be synthesized. That is anabolic process. The opposite is called catabolic process. That means complex substances are breakdown into simple substance. Photosynthesis is an anabolic process, whereas respiration is a catabolic process. These 2 together known as metabolic processes. Anabolic process of manufacture of organic compounds. What is happening in the photosynthesis? In the photosynthesis, organic compound C6H12O6 is going to be synthesized. Where it is synthesized? It is synthesized in the chlorophyll, chloroplast, where chlorophyll pigments are present. How it is synthesized? By combining of carbon dioxide molecule with the water molecule. So it is a chemical process which is done by using the light energy. For performance of any function, we need energy. How that energy is produced? That energy is given by the light energy. So here you can see the formula: 6CO2 combines with 6H2O in the presence of chlorophyll and light to form the C6H12O6 and oxygen molecule. Generally, we have a myth that the oxygen that is generated is being liberated from carbon dioxide, but it is actually produced from the water molecule. That we must remember. Photosynthesis is very important for the entire earth environment. Why it is important for the entire earth environment? Because it is the primary source of the food. In the food chain, if you look, there are producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, top carnivores, decomposers. Like this, there will be a chain. But all these primary consumer or secondary consumer or tertiary consumer or top carnivore, whatever the organism, it is directly, primary consumer is directly dependent upon the producer. What is producer? Plant is the producer. Secondary, tertiary consumers are also indirectly dependent upon the producer only. So it is the primary source of food for the entire earth atmosphere. All the living organisms of this biosphere, bio means living, sphere means area, whatever the living organisms present in this earth environment, they get the food sources from the producers only. And another important activity is release of oxygen to the atmosphere. We all need oxygen for our survival. All living organisms, except anaerobic organisms, we all need oxygen. Even plants need oxygen for their survival. That we will discuss under the next heading, respiration. So if the plants won't perform photosynthesis, this biosphere won't get food, this biosphere won't get oxygen, which are two important components, essential, not important, essential components for our for the survival of all the living organisms. So in this topic, there are several experiments, how air is important, how water is breaking down to liberate the oxygen molecule, what is the significance of the light, different types of experiments are there. We will discuss about them. We will also discuss about the sites of photosynthesis. What is the site of the photosynthesis? Chloroplast is the site of the photosynthesis, and we will study about the structure of the chloroplast and the different organelles and other structures present inside the chloroplast. We will discuss about the chlorophyll pigments, chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, carotenoids, and we will discuss about them. Light reaction. Actually, in the photosynthesis, two reactions are there: light reaction and dark reaction. Light reaction means that requires the presence of the light. Dark reaction that can happen in the absence of the light. That doesn't mean that day and night reaction. Light reaction and dark reaction, both of them takes place in the daytime also, but dark reaction takes place in the absence of the light. We will discuss about the electron transport also. By means of electron transport only, photosynthesis will take place. And the C4 pathway, it is also called Hertzsprung pathway. In the normal plants, C3 pathway takes place, whereas in certain plants like maize, C4 pathway will take place. C4 pathway is more efficient compared to that of the C3 pathway, so the yield will be more. Photorespiration is a process that takes place in the C3 plant, but which is absent in the C4 plants. And various factors such as light intensity, temperature, these also play an important role on the photosynthesis process. So that also we will discuss. Cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Photophosphorylation means phosphorylation of the molecules in the presence of the light, that is called photophosphorylation. It is of two types, cyclic and non-cyclic. So what are the differences between the cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation? We will discuss. Chemiosmotic hypothesis, certain amount of ATP also generated here, that we will discuss there. So this is a simplest diagram that can explain the photosynthesis. Here you can see the light energy. The light energy and the carbon dioxide, in the presence of the light energy, the carbon dioxide and the water molecules combine together to form the glucose molecule. Oxygen is actually liberated as a byproduct, but the oxygen which is liberated as a byproduct is having very much significant for the survival of all the living organisms. So this is about the light reaction, and this is the structure of the chloroplast, and this is the Calvin cycle. Calvin cycle is responsible for the synthesis of the starch molecules. So that we will discuss in detail when we go to that chapter. That is the fourth one. And now we entered into the fifth one, respiration. Respiration is actually opposite to that of the photosynthesis. In the photosynthesis, the plant uses all its energies by means of light energy. It combines carbon dioxide and water molecule to synthesize certain quantity of food material. But a plant or animal or any other thing has to break down that food material. For example, we are having certain amount of breakfast in the morning. I had idli. So idli won't give energy directly. That idli has to undergo digestion. After undergoing digestion, it liberates carbohydrate molecules. The carbohydrate molecules are absorbed by the cells by using the cellular receptors, and after entering into the cells, they will undergo cellular respiration. By means of cellular respiration, they liberate the ATP molecule, adenosine triphosphate. These ATP molecules are called energy currency that can only be used by any living organism. So in the previous unit, the plants, by means of photosynthesis, they developed a certain amount of energy, food material, Now that food material, how they break down into energy is called respiration. In the respiration, organic matter C6H12O6 combines with the oxygen to liberate energy. Here carbon dioxide is also liberated. So we are having a feeling that plants will liberate oxygen, animals will liberate carbon dioxide. That is not the case. Plants also perform respiration. Plants also liberate carbon dioxide just like us. That is why our elders advise us not to sleep under the trees during the night time, because in the daytime plants perform both photosynthesis and respiration. When they performs both photosynthesis and respiration, oxygen saturation will be more amount of oxygen will be present. But during the night time, plants in the absence of the light cannot perform photosynthesis. They perform only respiration. As they perform only respiration, if you sleep under the big trees like tamarind tree or neem tree, large quantity of carbon dioxide will be liberated. That large quantity of carbon dioxide is not good for our health, so we should not sleep under the trees during the night time. That is the thing. In this chapter we are going to discuss about the plant respiration, glycolysis. Glycolysis is nothing but breaking down of the glucose molecule into pyruvate molecule, and later on it will be converted into some other step. That is called glycolysis. Fermentation. Fermentation means glycolysis. The fermentation is actually a process of anaerobic respiration. During the anaerobic respiration, incomplete breakdown of the glucose molecules takes place. By means of fermentation, various types of alcohols, etc., pyruvate liberated alcohols are produced. This fermentation is having a lot of industrial significance. Various types of products that are being produced by using microorganisms are especially done by the fermentation. Aerobic respiration. Respiration is of two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration means that needs the presence of oxygen is called aerobic respiration. That doesn't need the presence of oxygen, that will happen, whatever that happens in the absence of oxygen is called as anaerobic respiration. So we are this respiration is called amphibolic pathway. Why it is called amphibolic pathway? Actually, respiration is a catabolic reaction. Catabolic reaction means C6H12O6 is a complex organic substance. That complex organic substance is being broken down into simple substances, carbon dioxide and water molecule. So it is actually a catabolic reaction. But sometimes along with the carbohydrates, proteins and fats can also participate in the respiration pathway. So when they are participating in the respiration pathway, when acetyl CoA or some other molecules are being produced, if necessary, a reverse process will take place by which the synthesis of proteins and fatty acids can take place. That is why it is called amphibolic pathway. Amphi means a two-way pathway. Respiration is generally a catabolic pathway, but if necessary, it will go in the anabolic process also. And the respiratory balance sheet. Respiratory balance sheet means how many ATP molecules are being produced in the respiration. During the respiration process, initially certain quantity of ATP are being utilized, but finally the net gain will be there. So how much ATP molecules are liberated, that is comes under the respiratory balance sheet. Respiratory quotient. Respiratory quotient means amount of carbon dioxide liberated to the amount of oxygen consumed is called respiratory quotient. For carbohydrates it is 1, for proteins and fatty acids it is less than 1. So that also we will discuss. So this is the equation for the respiration. It looks exactly opposite to that of the photosynthesis. C6H12O6 combines with oxygen molecule to liberate 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and energy is also being liberated. This energy liberation is very important here. In the photosynthesis process, the plants utilized the light energy to convert chemical molecules into chemical energy. By using light energy, they are converted into chemical energy. Here, the synthesized chemical molecules of photosynthesis are undergoing breakdown by combining with the oxygen to liberate energy. That's what here shown. During the photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and oxygen, water are combined with light energy to create glucose and oxygen. In respiration, oxygen and glucose are combined to release the energy found in the bonds of food. So energy bond breakdown leads to the liberation of energy. So that is the significance of the respiration. So these are the different cycles or pathways that we study under the respiration. So here this is glycolysis. By means of glycolysis, glucose is being broken down into two molecules of 3-carbon pyruvate molecule. This is the alcoholic fermentation. This is actually having lot of significance in the industrial microbiology. The glucose molecule undergoes through the fermentation pathway, and finally it produces the ethanol molecule. Not only ethanol molecule, various types of industrial products are being produced. This is the Krebs cycle. During the Krebs cycle only, most of the ATP molecules are being produced. So this is also called a citric acid cycle, and this is the amphibolic nature of the this respiration pathway. Generally, fats, carbohydrates, proteins, by means of different pathway, they reaches the pyruvic acid or acetyl CoA stage. But as and when required, they may undergo a reverse reaction and synthesizes the necessary molecules. The last topic is plant growth stages. We are seeing different types of plants since our childhood. Whatever may be the size of the plant, all the plants will undergo these stages. The first one is called sprouting stage, seedling stage, vegetative stage, budding stage, flowering stage, ripening stage. In the sprouting stage, the seed, when the plant matures, it forms the seeds. The seeds, when they reaches the soil, and when the conditions are favorable, if the temperature, moisture, and everything are favorable, they germinates. That germination stage is called sprouting stage. The sprouts contains a lot of nutrients. That is why doctors advise us to eat the sprouts. They contains all the essential nutrients, whatever the multivitamin tablet that provides us and that may not provide us, the sprouts will produce. The sprouts contains more nutrients than the seeds. That is why we all advise everyone to have the sprouts. And the second one is the seeding stage. Seedling stage means the seed already germinated, it produced a sprout, and it gradually establishes itself. It forms roots. The roots enters into the soil. It forms a small stem and 4 or 5 leaves. The 4 or 5 leaves starts performing the photosynthesis. The roots starts absorbing the water. By this time, all the nutrients that are present in the seed gets exhausted. Now the plant has to survive on its own. That is called seedling stage. Now the next stage is called vegetative stage. In the vegetative stage, the plant blooms, increases in size. The roots are very much go deeper into the soil. The plant forms various types of branches. They grow in size. Its foliage is increased. Now it performs more amount of photosynthesis, and it starts synthesizing more amount of food material, and it enters into the reproductive phase. So far it is called vegetative phase. Now it enters into the reproductive phase. During the reproductive phase, it forms buds, floral buds. Vegetative buds are there, we are not talking about them. There will be floral buds. These floral buds slowly opens and they blooms. When they blooms, they forms of flowers. This is called flowering stage. In the vegetative stage, the plant requires more amount of nitrogen. That is why in the initial stages of the crop, farmers will apply a lot of urea. But when the plant enters into the reproductive stage, the farmer should not apply the urea, because nitrogen is not required at this stage. At this stage, more amount of potassium is needed. For example, at your home, if you are having some fruit bearing or flowering plants, you apply certain amount of potash, which is commercially available in the market. The flowers will be big in size. The fruits will be big in size. At the reproductive stage, plants mostly require the potassium. So they blooms and produces the flowers. The flowers undergo pollination. It may be self-pollination or cross-pollination. By pollination, they forms the fruits. When they form the fruits, inside the fruits, automatically seeds will be there. These seeds are the progeny, next offspring of the plant. This life cycle will continue. All the plants undergo through this process. So what we are going to learn in this chapter, we are going to learn about growth, differentiation, de-differentiation, and redifferentiation, development, plant growth regulators, seed dormancy, photoperiodism, vernalization. So these three are very important terms. Differentiation. What is differentiation? It is defined as the process by which meristematic cells are converted into 2 or more types of cells, tissues, or organs which are different from each other. That means all the cells are originating from stem cells. So after stem cells are having multipotency, polypotency. So but once they undergo differentiation, they cannot revert back. That is called differentiation. Then the next one is de-differentiation. The term is used to denote the process of formation of unorganized tissues from the highly organized tissues. So once again, if the tissues undergoes differentiation, that is called de-differentiation. The later stage is called re-differentiation. When we come to that topic, we can discuss in detail. So here in the plants, we are having certain hormones. We are also having hormones. Thyroid hormone is there. Insulin is also an hormone. Testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. Like this, we are having different types of hormones. If there is an hormonal imbalance, our body will go haywire. That means a lot of problems we will face. In the same way, plants contain different types of hormones. They are called phytohormones. Phyto means plant, hormones. Actually, they are called plant growth regulators. Either they increases the growth or inhibits the growth, or so that's why they are called plant growth regulators. There are here we have shown 6 plant growth regulators: auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, brasinosteroids, abscisic acid, ethylene. And they are produced in the different body parts. Some of them are produced in the embryo of seed, some of them are synthesized in the roots, some of them are gibberellins, they are present in the meristems. Brasinosteroids, they are present in the seeds and fruits. Abscisic acid, it is present in the leaves. So ethylene, it is basically responsible for fruit ripening. It is present in the ripening fruit tissues. So each one is having a different function, major function. Without them, if one hormone is absent, one function is stopped. For example, if a fruit has to ripen, there should be some ethylene hormone. That's why nowadays some storage units are being constructed. In the storage units, they pump the ethylene gas so that the fruits will ripen. So different types of hormones are there. All these hormones play a significant role in the plant growth and development. Now, by using these hormones, scientists are able to regulate the growth of the plant and the development of the plant. For example, if you take the hybrid paddy varieties, during the flowering stage, they spray certain amount of hormones to increase the flowering. Another important process that is observed in the plants is photoperiodism and vernalization. The flowering of the plants depends upon the quantity of light they are being exposed. So here 2 types of plants are there: short day plants are there, long day plants are there. These short day plants are they are having a critical period of darkness. So for them, there should be more amount of dark period compared to that of the light period. That is why they are called short day plants. And whereas long day plants, they are having a period of darkness where they need less amount of dark period compared to that of the light period. Vernalization, certain plants, for example, wheat is there. Wheat is of 2 types: spring wheat and winter wheat. Spring wheat can grow in normal temperatures, whereas winter wheat, if it goes through certain amount of winter months only, it is able to produce flowers and fruits. So certain plants requires low temperatures for blooming or flowering. Requirements of plants to go through period of cold before they can flower. So if you plant a spring wheat in the winter season, it won't bloom. The same with the winter wheat also. Winter wheat, if you plant in the spring season, it won't produce any yield. There are 2 different varieties are there. So basically, the requirements of plants to go through a period of cold before they can flower is called vernalization. So these are the 6 important processes that are happening in the plants. Transport in the plants. Without transportation, plant cannot transport water and food inside the plant body. If the water and food is not transported, there is no growth for the plant. So mineral nutrients also play an important role. Enzymes, not only in the plants, in all the living organisms, enzymes play a crucial role. And then we discussed about the photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the lifeline of this nature. Without photosynthesis, we are not having any water, we are not having any food, or we are not having any oxygen. So that is the lifeline of the environment. And by means of respiration only, plants will synthesize the energy which is required for their survival. And finally, we are discussing about the growth and development of the plants. So these are the 6 topics that are going to be covered in the intermediate second year. So because of this corona pandemic, the content, the syllabus may be reduced. Certain discussions are there, and some of my colleagues are saying 1 or 2 topics from this plant physiology maybe also be deleted. I don't know about that. Even if they are deleted, it is better you all learn these topics, because if you go for further studies, especially in the agricultural sciences, the plant physiology, the foremost subject is the plant physiology. Without plant physiology, there will be no agricultural sciences. So I hope I have given a small overview of about this plant physiology. There are the certain technical issues. I am extremely sorry for them. So every obstacle teaches us certain lessons. This corona pandemic is teaching us some lessons. In the same way, this I have to improve myself further on the technical issues. Please stay home and stay safe. As our KCR Garu is advising, we all should actively participate in Arthaharam, not in as a mass. At your home also, please plant some plants so that this environment can be more beautiful, and more oxygen will be there. We are all nowadays we are listening about the pulse oximeters. Without oxygen, if oxygen levels are below 90, we are going to suffer. So please plant more trees. Thank you one and all. Thank you for the webinar team for giving me this opportunity.